Welcome to my video on embossed vellum elements for cards. I first got this idea last year when I saw a card on a commercial greeting card website where I sometimes look just to get some new ideas for making cards, and it had some really cool embellishments on the cards that were made of vellum, and I wanted to try to do something similar with rubber stamps and what I had on hand. Well, this was last year, and of course I've been meaning to get around to this video for a while and I haven't, so I decided to update this with a current set. Now these butterflies are done with this technique, and what's really cool is when you emboss these, they become less translucent, they become more dimensional, and they're just cool. So I'm going to show you how to do this. The first thing you need is some vellum, and I like the cardstock weight vellum that Stampin' Up! Sells. You need a brayer, some ink pads, a stylus, a foam pad, stamps, and some punches to match them if you don't want to cut them out by hand. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take our vellum and we are going to add some color to it. Now this is one of these sorts of techniques that you have to let dry for a period of time. So you need to do the coloring the vellum ahead of time and allow it to dry. Get that speck off of there. And I'm using some Daffodil Delight, and I just start adding color to the vellum, rolling it out to smooth it because it takes a while to dry, and you can, in fact, it takes so long to dry that it moves the ink around quite a lot when you're doing this, and you're not going to get exactly perfect coverage, but that's okay because it doesn't really show that much. So once I get a good coverage on my vellum, I put it aside to dry. And get rid of my brayer paper. And then I have here a piece that has dried for a while, and it is ready to stamp on. So what I'm going to do is take my set, which is called Papillon Potpourri, and I'm going to stamp some butterflies. And I did this with a piece of Coastal Cabana, and as well as a piece of the Daffodil Delight vellum that I created and let dry. Now this also will take a while to dry because vellum is not porous, and so you can see, I don't know if you can see the light is hitting the ink, it's still shiny. You can just set it aside to dry, or you can try to speed it up with a heat tool. The new one has a low setting, which is great for drying ink, but it still takes a while to dry. So I'm not going to do this. One of the other things you can do to speed up drying is to take a piece of paper and turn it upside down and blot the excess off. But chances are there will still be some ink on there that's still wet. So you're going to set that aside to dry, or dry it with a heat tool. And when you're done, you're going to have some pieces where the ink is totally dry, and you're going to take and punch out these pieces. And I'm just going to go ahead and do just one of these butterflies with my punch. I'm going to center it in the window as well as possible and punch it out. And here I have this butterfly. Then I'm going to take my foam pad and I'm going to turn this piece upside down. And I'm going to take my stylus, and I'm just going to start with the thin end of the stylus. Now you can use the stylus that comes with the Simply Score tool as well. That would work well for this. And you can buy those separately if you don't want to buy the Simply Scored tool. And as you can see, when I do that, it turns a little bit white, but the color that I applied to the vellum is still there. So I'm going to keep doing this, and I can get as detailed as I want. The harder I press, the more it shows up when you turn it over. And I'm just going to get each of these wings course, you could do this without coloring the vellum, but it is not as pretty. We used to sell colored vellum that you could do this technique with, but really it's easy enough to create your own colored vellum just by applying the ink with a brayer. Okay, now I've finished that, and you can see the difference. See, here's a regular one. Let me go ahead and punch this out with the other punch. You can see the difference between the two. Okay, so this is without the embossing, and this is with the embossing, and I hope you can see the difference. And when I turn it over, you can really see the difference and how white those show up against the color. This is really visible on colored cardstock more than white. So if I put this on here, you can see quite a difference between the unembossed and the embossed. Then, of course, all I did was use a glue dot to stick these onto my card. And being that this is not a deeply colored piece, they don't show up nearly quite as well. And also because a lot of it depends on which side the ink is on your vellum. I believe these are with the ink on the back side, and these are with the ink on the front side. So depending on, and it's kind of hard to tell, but I think this is with the ink on the front. This is the ink on the back. So depending on which side the ink is on the embossing will depend on how white these areas show up when you emboss them. So this probably would actually show up better on this than the other one I did. Anyway, that is my technique for embossed vellum elements for cards, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks.